Guys, Pixologic live stream. How he's keeping? Make sure and say hi. Don't be shy. We're gonna continue off from our last stream, which was doing Hellboy by Derek Loffman, based on this sketch over here. We're gonna keep going with him. I added in a cup for a bit of context. We were missing that last time. And we had added a coat, but I wanted to go back a little bit and just keep working into the body a bit. Kind of added in the coat just to show you how I do it, but in soon. Let's see here. I'm gonna get some music playing for myself, which I won't burden you guys with. So as usual, I never play music in the stream. I'll always let you guys, if you want, you can play some music in the background yourselves, rather than having to listen to whatever I'm listening to. Or well, listening to, you know, some royalty-free music or something like that. You're better off, you can listen to whatever you want on the side, and hopefully do some sculpting along with me. Let's see, yeah. Yeah, there you go. And having a little chit chat and a bit of sculpting. I should have made a cup of tea. Why didn't I think of that? That would have been lovely now. So how's all keeping? Hey Chris, welcome to the stream, brother. Actually, let's put it up here. There we go. Alright, so I done like a few little things on him since the last stream. I nothing you didn't miss on, but I had like human feet on him, but he has like hooves, so I just threw in like a simple hoof shape. He'll have like boots essentially on that go down. The idea is that he has like boots from here with like straps, and then a strap across here, and then his hoof. The rest of his hoof is actually sticking out then the rest. And we need to make his right hand of doom, which I learned is what it was called. I didn't know that. I didn't read the comics. I really should. But I was just a big fan of the movies and stuff. But we have to make his hand. I've scaled up his hand, you can see there. And I think the last time I had a bit of a kink in this leg, which I found kind of funny. Like it was a bit of an interesting, well, it was more funny than interesting. But it felt a little bit too out of character, so I just pulled that leg back in, that knee back in, kept him up a bit more, a bit straighter, pulled his fingers in around this little cup. Let's give that some dynamic subdivision. I just threw together a real simple cup. So I threw together a real simple cup. I can show you. I'm gonna like box model essentially the initial shape of his hand, and I can show you how I do that with like Z modeler and stuff. See what you think. Hey Asina, where's my reference for that hand? Yeah. Alright. Actually, let's start with the cup for the laugh. Just use this. Get rid of that inside. Boom. I just center it in the world. So, my brain isn't letting me recall the character's name. I feel I should know, but I mostly watch movies as well. It's Hellboy. Hellboy is the name of this character. Fix. I know exactly the feeling. I once like froze and couldn't. I knew the word reindeer, but I couldn't picture one for the life of me. It just left. Just walked out one ear, and I knew the word reindeer. I knew that I knew what a reindeer was, but for the life of me, could have been an elephant in that moment, and it was gone. It happened years ago, but for some reason that's always the one I remember. The one I remember forgetting. Made an absolute show of myself. But we can look back and laugh on it now. Right. Let me see this hand. Alright. Should probably actually just do this to the right scale, give or take. Close enough. Hellboy from the crazy talented Mike Mignola, exactly. Man's a genius. I met Mike Mignola at the name of it's gone. See, now you're after rubbing off on me. I'm forgetting things. Lightbox. I met him at Lightbox really briefly. Like I just went up and said hi. Yeah, legend. Living legend. Doing well, Cena. Thanks. Hope you're doing good too. And too many years in front of a computer collecting all that radiation causes memory loss. I don't even know my own name anymore. Yeah, pretty much. Especially nowadays, I spend way too much time sitting in this chair. Alright. I don't want to close holes. No, I can't. I might put a ring up the top. So I'll show you. This is how I do something. So I'm doing, like the big, thick forearm rock part of his right hand to do him. And this is how I'm basically starting. I'm modeling it as opposed to sculpting it, because it'll be cleaner, so I can control the bevels, like where the curvature, the edges and stuff really easily. Get it as a base, then I can subdivide it a couple of times and do details on top. So this is where the Z modeler tool comes in handy. So you see me there adding in loops. So I'm using B, Z, see it's selected here, M. B, Z, M, will get you to the Z modeler brush. I actually have it, I use it constantly, so I have it hotkeyd. So if it is something that you think you'd find useful, if you don't use it already, I would highly recommend hotkeying it. So I'm essentially still use a little Z modeler tutorial here. By default, when you hover over an edge and you hold space, it will give you all the options. See edge actions, it'll give you all the options of what you can do to manipulate an edge. If you hover over a polygon, you can see polygon actions. It's the same here. So you can say, let's say extrude, and then it'll have here all polygons, or I can extrude a single polygon. Let me show you here. Or all polygons, so you can give it thickness now. So this tool is very, very handy. It's the same with vertex, so point action. So I can, at the moment it's on move, so if I select it, you can see it just moves it. And I can do all sorts of stuff too. I can just delete it. So have a play. I can't go through every single option in the stream because we won't get anything done, as much as I'd love to. We gotta move on. So what I need to do is I need to polygroup, and then what now down here is the target. So what do you want to polygroup? Do you want to polygroup a single poly? Do you want to polygroup everything, all polygons? I want to polygroup a poly loop, so loop of polygons. And then once you have that selected, you can see this orange line changes direction based on where I am. So if I point to the left of the polygon, it will do the action in that direction. So if I point it down, you see. So I'm going to do it there. I want to do it there. Now I want to go to extrude. Now I want to go polygroup island. Or no, all, right? Yeah. So polygroup, yeah, okay. Forget me on stuff here. So polygroup island. So it's essentially isolating the polygroup. So if it's surrounded by a different polygroup, a different color, then you won't get that. It will only use that. You see, this is the same polygroup, it's the same color, but it's only using that. So polygroup all, and I get both of them. So now we're starting to get somewhere with this guy. Right, so I'm going to turn off perspective for a second. Grab mask and pen. Flip that, pull that down a little bit. I just want a little bit of an edge there at once. Sweet. Alright, so what I'm going to do is Control W to polygroup everything. Get that everything as a different polygroup, and then re-polygroup this poly loop. And just add an edge in here. I'm just using control while I scale, and it will scale off the normal. So based off what direction the actual polygon is facing. So I'll do a little bit bigger. Let's make this a bit longer. See, now I'm just masking to move stuff. And now it's all fun and games. This way. that in, just scale that in. Just angle that in a little bit. Is our version? Oh yeah, so yeah, scene is already answered in there. Is there a version of ZBrush program for students? Yeah, so ZBrush Core Mini, and then there's like 3 tiers. So you got the ZBrush that I'm using here, and you got ZBrush Core, and then ZBrush Core Mini. So ZBrush Core Mini is free. ZBrush Core you have to pay for, and then ZBrush, this software that you're seeing here, is obviously the more expensive because it's the full package. But it's great because you just pay for it once and you're good to go then. It's not like a lot of other softwares where you have to subscribe, you have to pay a yearly price or anything like that. You just buy it and you're good to go. Every update and everything is free from then on, which is pretty fantastic. Is ZBrush Core Mini useful for designing advanced characters? Yeah, it can be. ZBrush Core Mini, I mean, it's obviously more advanced the higher up you go. ZBrush Core Mini is very much just like it's kind of the sculpting tools are part of that, so it's a great place to start off on. It's a lot of fun to play around with. Obviously, of course, if you're aiming towards professional level, it's great to start with, and then you can move up to core, and over time, you know, if you're enjoying it and you want to keep using it, you can go up to core and then go up to the full package of ZBrush then. And it's a nice progression as well, because you know, you learn a little bit and then you go up a pack, you go up to the next level and you learn more about that, and you know, it's a nice progression. So it's definitely a way to do it. Let me see here. Let's give it thickness. No, it's not actually. Alright, first. Okay, so I've got like the basic shape there, I think. It could be bigger. Alright, I hope you can kind of see what I'm getting at here. Let me know. I haven't seen Paul Gabriel's miniatures series yet. It's been on my list. I've been obviously I work for a studio called Giant Animation here in Dublin, and between being quite busy with that, then I'm doing my own personal projects and stuff like that. I tend to just stick on music, and but there's a bunch of stuff that I'm like, oh, I can't wait to watch that. And even just like, you know, because I enjoy watching tutorials and stuff like that as well. You're never too good for tutorials, learning new stuff, new approaches to things, ways of doing things that you hadn't maybe thought of. So I've been meaning to watch it, along with a list of other things that I haven't gotten around to. Hopefully my time will free up a bit more and I'll be able to watch some stuff like that again. Feel free, by the way, if you guys have any suggestions for me or anyone in the chat, do share any good tutorials, YouTube videos. Please do feel free to share. sorry, hold on. Can smartest. How's it going, brother? Not doing too bad. Oh yeah, you're reminding me there. Some of you might have noticed if you watched the previous stream. By popular demand, I had the stream. I had this particular Pixologic stream. The title of it changed to Sculpting Easy-Peasy with Paul Deasy. I think I mentioned it in my last stream. It was changed there in the last one, but yeah, it was a suggestion made by someone in the chat one day, and when I heard it, I threw my head back laughing like a musketeer. So I had to get them to our buddy old Kyle to help me out and get that sorted, because it was a fantastic idea. So made it happen. Check out, he's in the chat there, Smartest. Check out his work if you don't know him already. He's one of the other streamers and he's an absolute legend. Alright, so see now. Okay, actually I'm after skipping something there, so the info there for you. So see here, those of you that don't know about edge flow, it's quite important. So if I hit dynamic now, so dynamic being instead of subdividing it like you usually would, if you go into dynamic subdivision and just it's like a preview of the smooth. It's not actually smoothed. You haven't actually added resolution to it. So you can see here we got some hard edges and we got the soft edge. So this is a little quick topology lesson for any of you guys who aren't familiar with that. We've only started using ZBrush and stuff. So if what you want to do is, what happens is when you smooth it, this point here will head both towards, when you smooth it will go towards this point, and it will also go towards this point and this point and this point, and then this one will be headed towards this one and this one, so they all kind of even out to each other. So if you want a hard edge, you add in what we call a support loop. So you can see I've added in a support loop here, and I can do the same for this. So it's basically anywhere I need an edge. So see here, control one in here. I'll get rid of that one just to tighten it up. See there, I've got one there. So now this vert here is going towards this and this, rather than trying to reach all the way down here, rather than evening out to something much further away. It'll hold its position. So now when I smooth it, you see? And the nice thing here is, as opposed to like if I was doing this with Dynamesh, I can just use a mask and really easily grab, turn the perspective off, just make life easier. See, I can grab that if I need to, like shift the proportions or whatever. So this is why I do it. Also means being able to control how sharp this is very useful, because I don't want some edges to be like razor sharp and some edges to be really soft, or I don't want one edge to be razor sharp in some areas and soft in others. I can do that after, but if I start with this and then subdivide, I can consciously go in and make those decisions, rather than losing control of it, and just because I'm using the H polish and stuff like that, and the pinch brush, this way I'm much more in control. And yeah, why not use creasing? Well, you can use creasing. The thing is, if I use creasing and I export to another one without beveling those edges that I've creased, then they don't transfer over. So what I'd want to do if I creased it is to make sure to go in and actually bevel the creases, which is fine. You can also do that too. For me, I always prefer to manually do it. I just, it's on my, I guess a big part of that is that I'm used to doing that, and to me, like, I mean, it doesn't take long. Then, like, you know, trying to poly group each section and making sure that you get the creases in the right place and stuff. It's totally viable to do it that way. Just this is how I do it. So yeah, if you'd rather do it that way with creases, then absolutely. I'm sure even like you'll find other artists like Smartest there, Stephen. That's Deasy. I don't know what way he does. I know he's a fan of. I've seen him do some stuff using. He likes to do his Topology and get his edge flow nice. Maybe you'll find it depends. Like, you know, there's an infinite amount of ways to skin a cat. Just hearing a weird haunted creaky door noise behind me there for a second. Where's I? Alright, so we'll add some thickness to this so now you can see. Let's go something like that. Yeah. I like to do sometimes then. I feel like I want to just inflate this slightly. Oh, see that? See the way it's shrinking when I inflate? I have double on. So I'll turn double off and the normals are the wrong way around. So I'll just flip it. So I'll inflate this a little bit. Boom. We can always get the subdivision levels back if we need them. I have to work this, go into our T-pose mesh. My name is lame. I'm having trouble. So Jeffrey is asking, love your artwork, Paul. I'm having trouble, however, with retopology because whenever I finish, I miss out a lot in detail of the higher poly model. Oh yeah. Well, okay, so, alright. That gets kind of, if it's a case that you want that low poly mesh with the higher poly detail on top, then you're gonna have to use displacement maps or normal maps, and that's a whole thing into itself. That's looking a bit mahoosive, isn't it? Scalar. So you can do all that in ZBrush. You have to keep your high poly. So you have your, what's the quickest way I can explain this, right? So you can either start with a base mesh, you can either start with a low poly, your production ready kind of base mesh, and then sculpt into that, go up to subdivisions and sculpt into that. And also your base mesh should have UVs. I'm gonna just have to keep going and assume that you know what UVs are. If not, Google it, you'll find it very quickly. There's plenty of stuff there. And once you've got your sculpting done on top of your base mesh, you can also use, there's the multi-map exporter, or you can do it down here. You can create a normal map, you see here, and it will take your high poly and create a map of, it will create an image that will wrap around the base mesh based on the UVs. I'm assuming there's a chunk of stuff that you know there, but that's a whole tutorial in itself. Like the whole process of going from low poly to high poly and baking your maps and stuff. But there's plenty of stuff on YouTube. All you want to do is just search for literally that baking, you could say. So baking is the word, is the phrase you use for, so you baking means that you're taking the detail of your high and you're baking it onto your low. You're baking it onto the map, which you will then apply as a texture, in this case a normal map, on top of your low poly. So you could say, put into YouTube, like, how to bake high poly detail in ZBrush. So the difference is, what you'll need to know is, you'll either want a normal map or a displacement map. Normal map is much lighter in the scene, but it doesn't give, it gives light detail. So you'll see, if you had like cloth, like small detail, you could use a normal map and you'll be able to have that as on top of your low poly. You're able to have that detail in your low poly. But if it's like wrinkles that have like that affect the silhouette, like they stick out, then displacement map is what's needed to get that level of detail. But displacement map is a lot heavier. If I'm using displacement maps, I never use displacement maps because, now, that's not to say, for anyone assumes that there's anything, like, displacement maps are very useful, but only in the right case. So for example, if I needed that kind of detail in an area where I couldn't afford to have topology to do that, to have that shape, and it needs to be rigged and it needs to be clean in that area, then you can use a displacement map in order to keep the topology clean for rigging. For example, that's one case. So, but there's lots of we'll go with that for now. So that's you need to do some research on it on the YouTubes and look into that. No problem, Jeffrey. Yulia's back. How are you, Yulia? Hope you're keeping well. For hard surface modeling, I really recommend the course from Elemensa. Okay, cool. How can I import an OBJ with the same scale the other tools in the project? I know there's a way. So, like, if I'm working within a project, if I'm say I don't know, say I bought this cup off Turbo Squid or something, and imported it, and it was a different scale. Like, that doesn't really matter. I can just scale it down, or scale it up, whatever it needs. But there is, see, it's not a problem I ever run into. I always keep like when I go to rendering, I'll scale things up generally to real world scale. But everything else I keep in ZBrush. I think there is. I remember Shane talking about it. Shane Olsen talked about it in one of his streams. How he kept things relative. I'd have to look that one up. If I'm honest. It's not a problem that I generally have because of my workflow. And I know that there's a solution to it, but it's that long since I heard it that I can't remember off the top of my head. Sorry about that. Where did you ask that? Yeah, you asked on YouTube. Okay. We try. Just leave it in the comments on the video, and I'll try to get an answer for that one, because I've heard it's come up before. Jot that one down. Yeah, he uses his ruler. Yeah, I know he uses his ruler, but there's more to it, like the explanation. I don't wanna. Oh, okay. Yeah. So Smartest might be able to help here, Steve. So Steve, you know, like when you import an object into the ZBrush scene, and you want it to be. You want the scale to be constrained to the scale of your ZBrush scene. In other way, ZBrush will kind of change the scale to what you're working in based on I think it's based on the tallest thing in your scene, right? That's what Shane uses his ruler for. Well, it's also just because it's also a super handy tool just for keeping things to the right scale later for rendering and such. They're flying tonight. I can't keep up with this. Alright. Okay. Do you think it's okay? So Raphael's asking, do you think it's harmful for a beginner to try and sculpt stuff from 2D concept arts to practice? I love doing it, but I'm afraid to create bad habits. No. Oh, sorry. Did you ask that already? No, I don't. Not at all. it can be very, very helpful. I mean, I would suggest, you know, using concepts from reputable artists, you know. You'll know reputable artists because their following will be gigantic. Thousands to tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands. That's a much safer bet than just picking, you know, your friends 2D, who maybe, not that there might be anything wrong with your friends 2D, but it's something, you know, it's good practice to be using good design, because it helps to build your own library, helps to, you know, you start to get used to that shape language and stuff, and you're essentially studying it in order to sculpt it. So it can be very helpful. I'd say starting out, because designing your own work, like, that's another, design is a whole other thing. There's lots of character modelers out there that can sculpt amazingly, but if you ask them to design something, they don't feel comfortable doing that because they haven't practiced that skill. It's a different skill, you know. So it's two different skills. For me personally, I've always loved drawing. Like, I was always into drawing. Sculpting came after. So I often do my own designs because I enjoy doing them. I enjoy going through the whole process. But I'd say, you know, if it is a case that you want to design your own characters, and have at it. Just make sure, you know, just make sure you go into it realizing that that's another skill that you're learning, that you gotta hone, but a very rewarding one. Alright, let's get this arm in here. So I seen Steve got back to you there. Sculpting from a concept. Oh yeah. Sorry, no, the one before. That's not something I'm super savvy with. I always have to either make this scale consistent in outside software and import it, or just repose, like you were saying. Yeah. So yeah, like, in terms of bringing stuff into the scene, I'll either just rescale it, and then, you know, if I am bringing it out to another software for rendering or texturing or something like that, you know, I'll just make sure I either bring it out to scale it to like real world scale and work from there, or just keep it consistent with what you have. Did I flatten the back of that arm? I'm not going to spend too long on that because his jacket's going to be down on top of it. Kind of want to. I'm not quite happy yet with how I have him holding the cup, because the cup is. It would be kind of nice to have him like holding the cup like this or something. That's the first thing that's coming to my head, just because then it's definitely very readable. I could also just have it contrasted, like have it white or something against his darker jacket, I suppose. But it'd be nice to have it as part of the silhouette because it's a key element of it. But okay, we'll see. I don't want to sit here and try fiddle with it for ages because you get kind of stuck in a rut. It's good to keep moving around. That's scaling two things. I need to separate those. Here we go. And concept is crucial practice because professionally that's what studios want to see from you. They don't care much. They don't do anything. Want to make you. Yeah, so I'm just Steeder, smartest. I should say. Hit the nail on the head really there. Like that's, you know, in my day job I don't do all my own concepts or anything. I'm a character modeler. So I get designs and from 2D artists, from designers, and then I sculpt them. It's and yeah, and part of like especially that practice of getting a design down well in a sculpt, I've equated it to life drawing at times, in terms of you have to have a good eye in a lot of cases, and that really helps with that. Of course, you know, you can lay it on top, but often what happens is you'll get 2D and there's things that you'll have to kind of interpret, or I've often got a lot of, and I personally prefer getting like just a quick sketch, you know what I mean, that I can then add to, and I get some, but like that changes from artist to artist, and also you gotta kind of, like I said, that's you're getting into an element of design there, so there's another skill to learn, but I've got so there's the practical answer and then the romantic answer, and I always go with the romantic answer. The romantic answer being, do what you want to do until you get so good at it someone has to hire you, is the romantic answer. But the more realistic answer is studios don't hire. There's a character modeler job going in a studio, they're not expecting or asking or wanting them to design. They've already got designers, and that designer focuses solely on design and always has. So but so if you really want to design, it's good to do that. But if you're trying to get a job, then maybe focus on your modeling and your sculpting ability and getting that being able to catch the mood and the details and so on of your concept that you've been given. I'm probably guilty of, I always like, I love working in this industry. I love that I get to do it as a job and I get paid for it, but I've always kind of, at least in my mindset, I always prioritize and think of my personal work before any professional work. I don't mean to say I don't, like, I you know, being a professional is very important to me, and having a good standard and so on. But that is part of why I try to do personal work as much as I possibly can. But I always think of that first. I always think of like, almost in my head, I'm still just a kid that sits at home drawing, kind of. Which I know sounds really, I don't know why I said that, sounded weird. But here you go. Aloha, hairy mandibles. I love it. Catch you later, Steve. Thanks for jumping in. I love both very much, but I like sculpting more, and I have no problem following a concept that I love. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, like majority of the time I'll do my own concepts. I'll sculpt for my own concepts, but I still, you know, when I see a concept that I really like, then yeah, it's an absolute pleasure to sculpt it. Like I've nothing against sculpting a nice concept, and it is kind of like good practice even for later when you want to design, because like that you're kind of building your visual library. I've talked about it before. I tend to get, over time, even when I'm not drawing for a long period of time, I still get better at drawing. When I come back, I'm still kind of better at drawing, just because I have been sculpting the entire time. But the principles are shared across the two things, and you know, a good shape is a good shape. It doesn't matter whether it's in 2D or 3D. It's like it's, as long as it's visually appealing, it's the same principle. Get some lumpy bumpy there, I don't like. Ew. Ugh. Okay. Right, let's get some of the shapes in on this hand. Right, so we want a fist. Let's make the palm. So just insert cube. Basically that shit. Yeah, I think you're right. 4 fingers, yeah. Well, including the thumb, right? Is that right? Yeah. He has three fingers and a thumb. 4 fingers. I'd say 4 fingers as well. Yeah. Sorry. Just so you know, this is like, I made this hand. I was working in symmetry. I'm making the hand of Doom now. Like, this is just a mirror of this hand. That's why he's got, 4 fingers and a thumb. So not to worry. How do you learn how to do some 3D? That's a big question. I learned off YouTube, essentially. I got myself ZBrush, and I opened YouTube, beginners tutorial to ZBrush, something like that. Just found out how to use a couple of brushes, enough to do some sort of sculpt, which I thoroughly enjoyed doing. And because I thoroughly enjoyed doing it, I watched another tutorial, and then I was like, oh well, what's a good way to make hair. So I Google, I put into YouTube how to make hair. And of course there's tons of tutorials there as well, like really in-depth tutorials, one of which I still haven't made. I'm ashamed to say, but yeah, same way you learn anything. Basically did it the exact same way I learned to play guitar. Anything, you just spend time doing it and find the information and watch streams like this. It's a good place. What I would say, tutorials are great. YouTube tutorials are great, especially when you're starting out. You want to figure out, I know a lot of people don't want to necessarily go out and pay a bunch of money to buy a tutorial for a software that they've never used before, because they don't know if they're going to like it. YouTube is perfect for that, because there's lots of free content there to learn and get you going. And you can learn everything you need to know about. You can learn everything in ZBrush through YouTube for free. Pixologic, on Pixologic's channel, there's tons of tutorials, and then there's tons of content creators that are making YouTube tutorials on ZBrush. Tons. And then as well, if you want, a kind of one-stop shop where you can go through an entire character and stuff, then you can go get a tutorial, a fully fleshed out tutorial, and that way you can go through it step by step and figure out a process and stuff if you want to go about that route. And then you've got like streams are great because it's a different. I was talking about this recently actually. I've two good friends, both artists as well, that both of them have made tutorials fairly recently, and something they said was that it's very hard in a tutorial to get across your thought process, because you gotta just move to the next point. You know what I mean? You gotta it's you're the person on the other end of the tutorial watching needs to know step 1, then step 2, then step 3, very methodically. Streaming like this is a lot more free flowing, and I can say, I can be talking about the pose. Like last week I talked a lot about the pose and what I was doing with it and why and how I was thinking about it. You can't do that in a tutorial, because the tutorial is going to be days long, and it's going to be going over tons of stuff that the person who bought the tutorial was not looking for. Where I feel like a stream is a much more casual, just kind of chat type thing, and you can ask questions and all that stuff. So all different purposes, but all very, very useful. So are you still attached? Yes. So I'm just going to hide this for now, because I want this big blocky job in there. And we need a sphere, I think, attached in here. So let's get ourselves a sphere. God damn. There we go. Like a glove. I'm not so sure about the scale of this just yet, but we don't have to worry about it just yet. We can scale it after the fact. So I don't have to worry too much. These fingers. Just keep us happy. There you go. 3 fingers. So all we're trying to do here is just get in those base shapes, those primitive shapes, essentially. Thinking primitives. So I'm just subdividing there. I'm just using the H polish. Just gonna break up the surfaces a bit and harden some of those edges a little bit. And again, I could do, like, I still have that low poly version, and I could go in and add some edge loops like I did before, some support loops, but I don't see this part as being as stringently, a bit more organic, basically, in this particular part. Now it's funny, this section is strange, and this is where, as we talked about design and how you have to interpret things sometimes, because 2D doesn't always answer everything that you need to be answered in 3D. So here we have the palm of a hand, right? Now on your hand, your knuckles from here bend. You see, it bends. It doesn't start at the end of the finger. The bend doesn't happen at the end, where the finger starts. This type of stuff is very important in production, because when you're structuring a hand, you need to know the distance between the knuckles and stuff, so a hand can do that. If the fingers are too long, the knuckles are off proportion or anything, the rigger will go to turn the hand, and you won't be able to fold a fist. You know, the upper third of the finger, say, will be too long to actually fold a fist. It will be going through the hand, or, you know, the upper first third of the finger will be too long, and this won't reach when it comes back around. You'll be left with a big gap, all sorts of things. So you need to know the structure. But a hand bends from, like, where your knuckles are. So now if you take this, it's just a block. So if the fingers come out the top and the fingers are made of rigid stone, how does the finger do this? So think about in animation, how are you going to make the finger do that? Are you going to bend the stone and hope the camera doesn't pick it up? Or are you going to maybe, like with the wrist here, you've got like essentially a ball and socket joint. Are you going to add a ball there and like add that to the design in order to find that how that function will work? So you have to think about those kind of things. Now, for what we're doing here, we're making a sculpture. We're not making a production character. So I don't have to get too caught up in that. So I'm more worried about things like silhouette, more artistic things than functional things. Actually, that's a perfect example of what I was just talking about there. Like, just as you're working, a thought comes to you of like, oh, well, this is the difference between sculpting and production sculpting. It's not necessarily information that you can just throw into a tutorial, because it's kind of, you're going on a tangent. You can't go on tangents, which is sometimes helpful to be able to do that. These legs. of a knuckle sandwich, yes indeed. Let's just delete this. So what I can do here is kind of getting into your topology. This is kind of ballooned, but if I go in, I've now get rid of those subdivisions, and I can just delete the edges, like so. If I want to get that, you see? Rather than going in and trying to use the H polish or whatever. Do the same there. See what it's doing, see? It's well smooths on. See? So, as far as you guys who aren't familiar with how edge flow works, hopefully that'll help. It is very important to know. It's, I mean, certainly if you're gonna work in the industry, you can't really get away with not knowing that stuff. I don't actually want to do that though. You can do that. So, you see there, sometimes I use one way, sometimes I use another. After a while, when you get used to it, you get used to doing the different processes and stuff, you just kind of react. You don't necessarily always think, you just kind of react to whatever you feel is the quickest way to do it, or the handiest way, or the way you feel like doing it, as long as you get it done right. What am I missing here? Yeah, it's a good job I did that. So it almost looks in like that. And then I can use this simple topology. Seems to do something like that. Because topology is so simple, all I have to worry about is just pulling that edge. I'll get that curve. It's getting a bit wonky from moving that around, so I'll just re-add that in so it's cleaner. Don't need to worry about that. I can subdivide this after and dynamesh all this together. Mandibles wants to know, did you block out this body today? I'm behind in the stream, but I caught the bust ones. Would love to see how you block out elbow epinaursis for stylized characters. Don't know why the area of the arm. Give me some trouble. Yeah, there's the was it the previous stream? It's one of the last two streams that I did, which you'll find on Pixologic's channel. They're all in there. I'm sure even if you put in like Pixologic Paul Deasy, you should get a list and you'll be able to find it, no problem. But yeah, I did the block out on the stream, yeah. It's all there. How does one get into teaching 3D? That's a good question. I mean, it depends. There's so many different ways to teach 3D nowadays. I mean, you could stream. Yeah, you can do like an online course. You could do a mentorship. You could then go to an actual school. I don't have enough experience. Like, obviously I'll teach through streams. I kind of just got used to streaming. I've done mentorships. I guess I started teaching. I was kind of always into it, even when I was in college. You know, anyone that ever approached me saying that they want to draw, I'd always share with them whatever I could. I always just had a tendency to do that. So, you know, and then when I started working in the industry, you know, if I could help anyone with anything, I always tried to. So I just mean, that's to say, you know, so I just gained experience doing that. A lot of people used to kind of say, you know, I didn't know how to do that, I couldn't understand it, and then, you know, when they came to me, I was able to explain it to them in a certain way that they could understand it. So, which only obviously then made me want to do it more. So, in terms of like how to apply to like teach in a school or anything like that, I can't really help you there because it's not something I've done myself. But you know, look across YouTube and Twitch, and so many content creators out there teaching people all the time. And I feel like they reach a much larger audience. They can teach a lot more people. Pretty sure they also make a better living doing that too. So, you know, it's kind of more rewarding that way. But it depends. You know, maybe if you'd rather teach in a class or whatever. Just duplicate that. Is that an Irish accent? It is. Well spotted. Shane Olsen thought I was a pirate. It is indeed. It's a Dublin accent from the capital of Ireland. For those who aren't familiar. I'm representing here. There's not a whole lot of Irish sculptors, known Irish sculptors knocking about. I'm trying to represent for the house. We wanted to do we want to do a fist or nah? Let's not do a. Nah, let's not do a fist. I don't want to do a fist. Doesn't make sense. So this guy. Just gonna line it up slightly. What we'll do is we'll add in support loops after the fact. And we'll add in support loops near the edges and then subdivide them. And that will round it slightly and we'll get that bevel between the knuckles. You'll see now when I do it. Tapering the inside a little bit like a real finger, kind of be, not to make it like a real finger, but just, you know, design decision. Did you happen to answer my question? I may have missed it. I'm not sure, Chris. Okay, your stuff is always so clean. Okay. Your stuff is always so clean, but you say you want to change a line or something after you've dynameshed it together. How do you do it while keeping it just as clean? Well, once you've dynameshed it, you know, you're locked into that. So what you want to do is make sure not to dynamesh it too early. And yeah, it does happen sometimes where you dynamesh it and then after you're like, oh, whoops, I should have fixed such and such a thing. In which case you just got to go old school with it and, you know, get your Damien standard out or whatever and start sculpting in. And you're obviously just trying to maintain. One thing you'll want to have done is get your subdivisions back. Your subdivisions are key to keeping something clean, because if you make marks, you can drop down. If you make a bunch of marks with, you know, your clay build-up and stuff, and it's now making your shape wobbly. If you drop to your lower subdivision, you can smooth. So say you went in and made a lot of marks with your Damien standard, a lot of scars or something, but then you realise that you've made the surface really wobbly, and you know it's dynameshed. You go through I've gone through it before, where you duplicate the object, you duplicate the mesh, hide everything else except your dynamesh and the duplicate of it, then Z-remesh your duplicate, or you know, Z-remesh one of them, it doesn't really matter. The original can be better because it's still got all the history. Z-remesh that, and then you know, subdivide it a couple of times and reproject that mesh on. So now you've got that new mesh from the ZBrush that's now got enough resolution that when you've projected it on, you're getting the detail, you're getting all that shape and detail out of your Dynameshed one. So now that that's done, you can get rid of the Dynameshed version, and now all those scars and everything you've done, making it like kind of destroying the maybe the silhouette of the your shape, the nice volume you had, say, you can drop down to your lower subdivision, and you can use, instead of going shift and smooth, you can go shift, press the pen down, and then lift shift to do your alternate smoothing, which will even the surface back out, and you'll get that clean line, that clean volume back. And then when you go up to subdivisions, your detailing is still in that subdivision, so now you've got both back. So that's the main way I would do it. And the other thing is just to outside of that is just, you know, try to keep that in mind as you're sculpting. Don't start going ham at it. Always keep it in mind if you're trying to keep clean. Make sure you keep that at the forefront of your mind when you're sculpting after you've Dynameshed everything. But yeah, even when I Dynamesh something, after I Dynamesh, the first thing I do with everything I Dynamesh is go back in and get my subdivision levels back. Can't work without them. It's not something that I do anymore. I did when I started. Like sculpt in Dynamesh. I never ever do it anymore, and I should, because it has its benefits too. You know, like I've said it tons of times before, there's no one best way, but obviously, you know, if you're trying to get a certain look, then your process does matter, and if you want to stay clean, Dynamesh isn't necessarily the best way to do that. If you're trying to make like a super clean kind of stylized character with like lovely, you know, forms, you need to have that lower subdivision in order to control that. My brother Spicer's in. Spicer McElroy. How you doing, man? Making it look super easy, barely an inconvenience. Thanks a lot, man. Spice is another one of our, another one of the family, another one of the Pixologic live streamers. If you haven't seen him, make sure and go check him out, because he's a gent and a fantastic sculptor too. Just some badass superheroes. Do you have an Instagram? Yeah. I actually keep them here now handy, because people always ask and I never have them handy. Terrible host. So it's instagram.com/PaulDeasy_sculpts. I'll throw it into the chat there. There you go. The most abrasive ZBrush live streamer. Cheers, man. Thanks very much. Yeah, I'm doing good. Keeping busy. Trying to finish. I'm working on a personal character at the moment that I've been trying to finish for ages, and I've been learning a bunch of new stuff with it. And it was something I heard, and it's unfortunate I can't remember where I heard it, and I wish I did. But I heard something late last year. I was watching a podcast. You know, talking about like the trap of falling into, as an artist, getting stuck in that trap of making things in order to post it and, you know, get likes and follows and all that stuff, which is nice, but you forget to make stuff to just enjoy the process of making it. and you know, I always still enjoy the process of making stuff, but I felt like there was at least a part of me that was letting that slip a little bit, and so I made that the forefront of this latest one. So I've really been taking my time with it and enjoying it, but I'm kind of, now I'm at the point I'm like, I really need to just move on to the next thing. But yeah, so keeping busy, you know yourself. How are you getting on? Never chased the clout. I just, hairy mandibles, what a name. Where do you get your inspiration from, and do you have some favorite artists, either traditional or digital? Where do I get my inspiration from? That's a difficult question. I don't know if I actually, like, there's nowhere I go for inspiration. I'm kind of always just paying, like, I could watch a film. I'm just always trying to, almost in the back of my mind, almost just always thinking like of something. If I like something, like, oh, I wonder, could I take the premise of that and turn it into something else? Or, you know, it's not necessarily like I go to this artist or this website, or it's more of a mindset, I think, of just always thinking about just, you know, you see something like there is, I guess, I actually follow a bunch of like cinema pages on Instagram and stuff that can be quite good. Like, there's one I follow that's just, it shows like the color palettes of different scenes I quite like, and sometimes I'll see a color palette and think, oh, I want to, like, that particular blue is interesting. I wonder, maybe I could do like an underwater thing and use that kind of color palette, and but the scene itself is like a shot from like a gangster movie or something. There's nothing to do with it. It's just like when I see something I like, I'll kind of think for a minute to see, is there anything there? Does anything come to me for an idea to do something? In terms of artists, that's also a difficult question. You know, like, so there's lots of Dylan Ekron. I love Alina Ivanchenko. Another one I absolutely love, James W. Kane. They'd all definitely be in my top 5 for sure. But I mean, there's tons of them. Like, I love, there's a lot of 2D artists I really love as well. You know, Nicholas Cole. Love Nicholas Cole's work. I love how he does the shapes and the colours and his characters. So they're really alive and really dynamic. Everything about them is dynamic. You know, the shapes within the shapes are dynamic. It's, for me, he's one of the best character designers there is right now. So yeah, tons of stuff. That's a good question for the chat, actually. And you guys have any artists or particular maybe websites, or just even things like you know, maybe you go out on walks, maybe you whatever it is that inspires you, drop it in the chat. I'll be interested to know. It's an interesting topic, because I feel like that's a very personal thing to everybody, you know, where you get inspiration from. I'm sure many of us share the same kind of things, but still, it's not something that you go, you know, it's not like you can ask someone, where do you get inspiration from, and then just try to copy them. It's a person. It's like where your interests lie. I go to my mortgage balance and it inspires me greatly. Yeah, there you go, see? I love that. Elena and Ashley are very good, are crazy good. Yeah, absolutely. And Spicer, of course, Spicer. He's everyone's hero. If sculpting was a game, Spicer would be the last boss. You know what I mean? Like some like crazy 80s side-scrolling sculpting shooter. You come in and like Spicer would be at the end. He's the last boss in a big dojo. That's Spicer McElroy basically summed up. Alright, it's doing this thing. ZBrush does this thing sometimes. But if I just do that, it fixes it. Well, it does that, but then you just control an N. Sorry. It does that sometimes, I don't know why. But if you hit solo, it'll sort it out. I'd love to know how I figured that out. But I figured it out so many years ago, I have no clue. Alright, let's get the legs back on this guy, because it's bothering me now. I'm doing fingers based on this reference I have. I'm not loving it. I wish I had went my own way with it. A bit more blocky. Let's see where it goes. So, again, like doing all of this, it's still a level of blocking. You with me? So, even though, you know, the whole body is there, like we're essentially still blocking. Like this is obviously still blocking. Everything's still in separate pieces, so we can change the proportions of things, we can get the silhouettes working, we can, you know, I've got like a custom view set, so this is essentially where we're going to be looking at them from. So I want to make sure that I get this angle working, and now everything's in separate pieces. You know, if I need to, I can come over here and like pull out the edge of that leg a little bit, or you know, get a bit of more of an angle on it, or whatever it is I need to do. So we're essentially not out of the blocking stage yet, but you might think, oh god, so much more to go if you're still in the blocking stage. But the blocking stage should really be, like, in my case, I'll stay in the blocking stage. Blocking, like, including if I'm doing texture and everything, the blocking stage is basically half of the entire process, including like rendering and everything at the end. Once you get through the blocking, like finishing the sculpt is only a very small portion of the entire process. Like in terms of, it doesn't have, it's not going to take, in terms of just time, you know. Of course, in some cases where you can have something that you need to detail that's just, you know, really time consuming, but generally speaking, 9 times out of 10, that's not where most of the time is spent. And that's important, because generally when you see someone spending most of their time detailing, like in terms of you've got your block out, your sculpting, let's say your detail, your, say if you're texturing, you're rendering, whatever, if they're spending the majority of their time detailing, it doesn't tend to work out so well. At least in, you know, kind of more cartoon to comic book style characters, I'd say. Once you get a bit more realistic, obviously the detailing level shoots up. If you're going in and like there's some artists that go in and like basically go in pour by pour, then that's a different story. But that's obviously a whole different kettle of fish, as they say. Let's pose his hand a little bit. Thank you, Potato Man. Is that another Irishman? I can only assume, since as the world knows, we love our potatoes. Someone asked me a while ago, is it derogatory to mention like, how was that? To mention like leprechauns in front of Irish people? It isn't. But yeah. I'll catch you later, Spicer. The detailing time issue is a bad habit I've picked up when sculpting. Yeah, it's really, it's arguably one of the most common bad habits you can pick up. Not even just sculpting, a lot of like 2D artists have the exact same problem. I think it got beaten out of me in college, I would say. So I was lucky that way. It's probably earlier than most. I had a life drawing teacher named Paula Jane, absolute legend, fantastic artist, and she really beat that out of me. She was like, no, gesture, and made sure, you know, if the gesture isn't right, why are you drawing a button? Kind of, you know, she'd make you feel a bit stupid. But you learned quickly, which I thoroughly appreciate. Right, let's go back out here. So again, remember, we've got to get the jacket in on top of this, and that's going to require some blocking too. We have the jacket in here somewhere. Oh hey Hopper Sean's in. How's it going, man? Hope you're keeping well. Got to get the jacket in on top of this, which we have in here somewhere. What is that? Oh, that's that piece of arm. We can get rid of you. Don't need you anymore. That's good to do. Make sure to keep, if you've got subtools in here that you need to get rid of, especially in a production, because the amount of times I've gone over to, you know, like a junior or mid or whatever, who's like, they're working on a sculpt and they're struggling to get the look, and I go over to help them and I cannot get through their subtools. There's folders, there's loads of stuff that are hidden, there's like tons of hidden meshes and stuff. I'm like, Lantern Jesus, I can't find, there's like folders with the entire character like 3 times, and it's really hard. It's like, commit. If you don't need it, get rid of it. You don't need it. What about his hooves? Yeah, we'll get to the hooves. We've got his hooves kind of blocked in a little bit, but we'll get to that. The hooves down here is gonna have like kind of, they're like boot socks. They're like straps around here, and they go across, just across here, and then, you know, he has his little shorts on. So we'll have to do the, so yeah, that's what I was talking about. We'll have to do the jacket. What else is in here? Let's just make everything visible. Right, okay. So move things around a little bit since this. I'll make sure. There she is. you have to get the jacket in, get the general shape, and by the general shape I mean figure out where we want hard edges, where we want nice curves. Then we can worry about the secondary detail of the jacket, in the bigger wrinkles, and that, you know, for me, I always kind of keep that to a minimum. I don't want to go nuts on tons of wrinkles and just start going in with small brush and doing tons of wrinkles. I always try to think of like, where's the big wrinkles, and like for me, you know, and I think any artist really, especially when it comes to something like that, but even with anatomy and, you know, those things, you know, it's that age-old rule of reference is key, so that you don't end up making just something generic. You don't want to just guess at everything, you know. Find some reference, and find your big wrinkles, and you do your like compression folds where like the sleeve meets the rock arm, where it compresses down, you get all those folds. Again, so, you know, get an image of a compression fold and work off of it, because why wouldn't you? It's gonna be better to do it that way. And there's no that's another mistake that, you know, some beginners tend to make, not because they don't think of it, but just because they feel like they have to do it from their head, or else, you know, they didn't do it, they don't own it, kind of, or they cheated or whatever. And it's funny, no matter how much seems to be ingrained in some people, where no matter how much they hear it in tutorials, people, because there's plenty of people out there that say that all the time, but it's like stuck in them. But yeah, just remember, always try to go into it with the mindset of not overcomplicating it when you're doing like wrinkles. So you see here, like the big brown shoulder, like we don't want that. I don't want that. And there's a bunch of stuff that we have to work out on the jacket like that. This is very much just like a blob of a shape right now that we need to work into. So, you know, you get the shape of the jacket in there, and the shape of the jacket is going to be really important, because it is taking up a lot of his body, so that's going to be one of, if the biggest contributor to the silhouette. And but enjoy it, you know. It's, go in there and you find different shapes, see what works, see what looks nice, see what doesn't, replace it, change it. Don't get committed to anything, kill your darlings. Find something that works. It doesn't happen straight away. You don't just know immediately exactly what to put in. No one does, so that's also worth mentioning. Don't put that pressure on yourself that you didn't get it first time. It's not the point. Doesn't make you a bad artist or anything. Even the best artists don't get it right first time. No, I certainly don't get it right the first time. But, you know, the more you do it, the quicker you will get it, as your eye improves. I love how his coffee cup is so tiny compared to his hand, like a large shot glass. Yeah, exactly. So that was something that I wanted to do, and I'm still, it could even be smaller, but I don't want to get too crazy with it. But that was something, because that was it. That's a scale element. So the idea being, I want Hellboy is big, and I want him to look really big. You know, like the Hulk is really big, but how do you make him look big when he's just on his own? So the size, his proportions feel like a big character, of course, but if you put something in the scene with him that you know the scale of, like a cup, then you know how big a cup is. So immediately, the character becomes way bigger, just looks way bigger. So if you make the Hulk and you sit him on a chair, and the chair is the same size as this chair is to me, can you see that? Yeah, the same size this chair is to me, versus you put him on a stool and like you can just see the legs because it's tiny and he's all hunched over on it. He made that, like, which composition is gonna make him look bigger? You know, it's a very simple thing, but something that, you know, if it's not something that you've thought about before or been told or whatever, you wouldn't necessarily put it together. So little things like that can really drive the final look of a piece. I'm not so sure about the pose of his hand yet, so I have to work into that at some stage. I'm debating, like, if I make a cup that his finger can go through the handle of the cup, I need to make the cup much bigger, which I don't necessarily want to do. Or make him hold the handle of the cup kind of between his fingers, but that might get a little bit too silly. So I haven't decided yet. Maybe that's okay, you know, I could make the cup white maybe. I kind of thought it'd be funny maybe to make like a Batman cup, or, you know, make it like another hero. Do that kind of, you know, or Deadpool. Nah, let's not do Deadpool. But yeah, like a Batman or Superman cup or something like that. Could be funny. There was Batman, seen lots of like Batman, Hellboy fan art and crossover stuff. So that could be kind of cool. It could be an interesting thing sometimes to, like, if you've got, you know, like a lot of professional artists have their own logo. I like to do that sometimes with things. Just slip in a sneaky logo. It can be like it's almost like a fun little Easter egg for people to spot. Like, oh look. I do it nice and subtly. Then again, it can also probably come across a little bit egotistical, so you gotta be careful. And I might do, I'm debating on, I may later on do groom for his hair, for fun. Which you can actually, like, whatever grooming software you want to use, but you can actually use fiber mesh to generate curves from and stuff. Which is super handy because you can comb them and everything in ZBrush, which is very simple to use. You just keep the fibers low. It's quite cool. It's a nice workflow. Paul, since the jacket is a single plane and the collar is flipped, how do you prevent it from flipping normals when you end up adding thickness? Well, let's go double. So you can see there, normals are pointing out towards us there on the sleeve, say, and then it reaches the edge here, and then it wraps around and goes back the other way. So what you don't want is actually to model it like this, where, because what will happen then is you've flipped these normals. So you want it to it's, if you imagine this being the jacket across his chest, like a cross section of the jacket across his chest, and then here we meet the collar. You want it to go around and back out and follow the same all the way around. What you don't want is to go like that and then essentially flip it and go back, because you have to flip the normals to do that. So you don't want it. You want the normals to be on the same side all the way around. In order for me to see this, I need to have double on, because the back. Well, let's actually extrude it and show you. So, kill those creases. It needs more support loops, but you see, so this purple is what we had originally. Well, sorry, no, the red is actually what we had originally. But you see, if you imagine with the purple, it goes in and wraps around. Now, if I isolate the purple, we can see the front of this, but this is all now flipped. This is not flipped; it's just pointing in the opposite direction to the camera. So, yeah, that's just make sure that you don't. You keep the plane in the way. You keep the flow of or the direction of the planes as you turn it. Don't do this. Do that. When you're turning around and out into the collar. Hope that makes sense. That was kind of awkward to explain, but hope that makes sense. Have you tried using dynamics for clothing? Yeah, I have. I've done it a bunch of times. I've used the dynamics for more than even clothing. Like it depend. Like the last thing I did it for was I made like a kitten on a pillow. I 3D printed it. I think the only place you can see that is on my Twitter. I just put that on my Twitter. Or did I? No, yeah, I only put that on my Twitter. But I sculpted the cat and then used dynamics on with a pillow. I just created a pillow shape and then used the transform dynamics tool and just lowered the cat down into the pillow, and it got all those creases. But the thing is, that was great and it gave me a nice start, but I still would always go in, especially for stylized, even for realistic, I would always go in, because it's great to get that start and it can be quite realistic looking and everything, which is fantastic, especially for like compression folds. If you let something fall on the ground and you get all that nice wrinkling, that can be really hard to do with just sculpting. But I'll always go back in and sculpt in to it again anyway for the appeal, because I still want to make sure that I go in and make the actual forms appealing, rather than just use dynamics and leave it like that. I don't like to do that. I like to sculpt in and I enjoy it. I enjoy the sculpting it. So, and also, if I just use dynamics and I never sculpt it, then I'll never get better at sculpting folds. And it should be, for me, and I believe everybody, you should always try to avoid using anything as a crutch. That's not to say don't use dynamics. Absolutely use dynamics. It's a really powerful tool. But don't overuse it. Remember to sculpt these things. Do it manually yourself too, because you improve your ability that way. Where if you only ever use dynamics, you're never going to get any better at sculpting cloth. Look at James W. Kane is a very good example of someone who sculpts cloth, and you're never going to get that with dynamics. You're never going to get his level of work with dynamics. It's just not going to happen. You're going to have to learn to sculpt it to get that much appeal out of your cloth work. So, be my 2 cents on that one. But it's great. I love using it. I love using Sims. I love just watching stuff like crumble or break or fall or whatever. There's a lot of satisfaction in it. I love it. Hi Paul, do you know when I import my sculpting stuff already it started lagging like crazy? No idea, don't use it. I missed the stream. Mohammed. Maybe next time. You can always rewatch it after next time. Hopefully you can catch us. The call of your trip for the longest time, yeah. Didn't know you had Twitter. Yeah, I'm seeing it right now finally, by the way. Didn't know you had Twitter, yeah. I didn't have Twitter for a long time. And I thought, sure, everyone's doing it. No harm in making one. Well, I'm very much, I post my stuff. If I see something art related I like, I'll retweet it, and then I'm out. I don't like to get too involved in in just general scrolling through social media and stuff. Try to avoid it. We all know it's bad for us. We all do it, but I try to make a conscious effort not to get sucked into it. It can be hard. I get sucked into Instagram sometimes. Usually in the morning. I'm trying to break that habit because it's very bad. That shoulder looks wonky. It's too far out in the jacket. But anyway, let's just hide the jacket for now because we're not ready to tackle that beast just yet. Time yet? Oh, okay, 2 minutes. Yeah, okay. Right, that we don't need. See, there's another mesh we don't need. Get rid of it. Good luck. Alright, so yeah. So making our hand of doom. So for the next stream, what I might try do is do a little bit more on the hand, just to get the proportions where I want it. Nothing, I'm not doing any processes that you haven't seen here. Or, I'm not gonna skip anything on yous or anything. Not to worry, but just make sure that I'm happy with the proportions of it and the shapes. Push and pull things around a little bit, not too much. And then we can go in on the next stream and do a little bit of detailing on it, do some cracks and all that good stuff. Should be fun. There's where is the Twitter? The Twitter. Hold on. I have the Twitter. There's Twitter. Oh, sorry. There you go. Twitter's in the chat there if you fancy following me. I only just made it, so I haven't got a bunch. I have a lot of the stuff that I've made on it and stuff, and it's actually quite good for just. I did a little GIF the other day when I was working on a character that I'm doing called Penny. I did a quick little GIF that I could throw up on Twitter, which is fun. So it's great for that. So if you want to see that like whip work, similar to the way I do with Instagram, Twitter's quite. You get quick. It's quick to upload and stuff, so I quite like that actually. I find Instagram can be a bit faffy sometimes when you just want to upload something and you have to do all this stuff. I like to be just in and out. Post and ghost. Can you pronounce? Oh, okay. Can you pronounce my name? Love from India. I haven't. Before I even read it, I'm gonna say no. But we'll give it a shot. For you. Oh, Jesus. I mean, in English, that's like Gaurav. Gaurav. Yeah, I couldn't even begin. As much as I'd love to, I do not know enough about Indian names to take a decent shot at that. Oh, did I get it right? Ah, nice. Sweet. Alright, hold on. Let's see. Garaf Uniyal? Garav Uniyal. I'm going to go with that. Am I close? I hope I haven't butchered that now on you. They followed, always look for more wonderful stylized sculptors. Piece based on Samuel Young is so amazing. I always end up in my inspiration boards. Thank you very much. Yeah, the mouse one, I see that all the time on I put in stylized stuff on Pinterest. It always pops up. Close. Cool. Yeah, so next, yeah, we'll try to do the detailing and try to get into some of that drapery. I need to get some reference together before we get stuck into that for the jacket, and then we'll have like a cool jacket with wrinkles and work into the collar a little bit, and then add like buttons and different materials, maybe some fur type stuff around the collar to break up the materials a little bit. So you get the cloth, you get the rock, you get the skin, you get the then we'll have to do like the belts and the straps around the ankles and do his hoofs. Yeah, so plenty of fun stuff to do there. So this should be a great one, and I think it should turn out quite cool. And then hopefully do groom on them too at some stage. Do some texturing. Bag of laughs. So we'll leave it there for tonight. I think we're at that time. Yeah, 3 minutes over. So thanks again for joining, guys. Make sure if you do enjoy it, you want to catch the next one and stuff, you know, you can always go in, like, subscribe to Pixologic. There's a bunch of other really top level artists in here doing streams on a weekly basis, so make sure to do all that and make sure to catch them. As well, if there's any questions I missed, you can throw it into the comments as well, and we'll try to get back to you there. And my next stream will be, it's every Wednesday, every second Wednesday, so 2 weeks from now on Wednesday, same time, 8 p.m. GMT time. So hopefully